Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3.
Good evening, everyone. We are going to go ahead and start our meeting for April 22nd, 2021. Temporarily, I will be standing in for Mayor Hill as he has another obligation. First, we'll start with our pledge allegiance to the flag, followed by invocation by Chaplain Mulberry. Is Chaplain Mulberry here?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
All right. If we can start with the pledge allegiance to the flag by Commissioner Borm, followed by invocation, going directly into roll call.
All right, follow me, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, we thank you once again for this day and certainly for your goodness all day long. We thank you, dear God, because you've been so good towards us. Even now, Lord, as we come before this session on this night, we ask for your divine presence, that you would hover over and breathe upon us. God, that you would lead, guide, and direct. Give us instruction on what things we must do as we make decisions concerning this city. God, in the name of Jesus, God, we pray that you would give wisdom, give how to do what and what to do when. We depend on you, God, because you're able. Thank you now for this opportunity. But we ask it all in Jesus' name. Thank God. Amen.
Amen. Noted for the roll call that Mayor Hill will be joining us a little bit later in the meeting. Commissioner Campbell,
Present.
Commissioner Jones, Commissioner Borum,
Present.
Commissioner McCaskill.
Here.
Commissioner McCaskill is present via telecommunications.
Thank you so much. We'll move forth with the approval of minutes from March 22nd, special called City Commission meeting, March 25th, 2001 City Commission meeting, April 7th, 2021 special called City Commission meeting, and April 8th, 2021 special called City Commission workshop.
Motion to accept minutes as written.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second by Commissioner Jones. Any question? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion to carry. All right, at this time, we're going to take a few things out of order. At this time, we're going to have Mr. Newfield come up and give us an update with the Palakka Palakka Gas Authority, as well as the airport.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, I guess isn't here, but if he is, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. Holmes, and Ms. Thomas, thank you very much for this opportunity to give you a briefing on your airport advisory board. If I can start with that one. I serve as Mr. Buell. On behalf of John Browning, Wayne McLean, Melissa Miller, Tim Johnson, Hugh Rawls. Thank you. Dana Jones and myself, we say thank you. Thank you for enabling us to be part of this important city asset that serves our aviation corner of Florida. We've enjoyed participating in FDOT grants, plans, and interactions at 28J. Mr. Greg Evans, Ms. Donna Whitney, and Mr. Kyle Kaufman have been wonderful to work with. And as you all know, Andrew and his team at Passerone Associates are also a wonderful asset to 28J. Andrew, along with FDOT, are an inspiration in helping us dream. Good dreams, realistic dreams, making goals with plans to achieve. They're also a good provider in helping us grow and get better. As John recently reported, we've received $22 million in the past 17 years. With this growth money and the asset type the airport is, we've had minimal need for maintenance money. And if in the city's American Rescue Plan funding, if y'all find a spot for a little investment in airport infrastructure, we would love $100,000 of it to kick off our maintenance repainting fund. Recently, we went up $25 a month on every hangar rent to start a maintenance fund, and we need an appearance upgrade. So I'm just throwing that out for a little food for thought, if you don't mind. But with this group has also been a partner in helping us see the future of aviation in North Florida. And we, your Aviation Airport Advisory Board, treasure very highly all these inputs that we get and the ability we have to serve you, to give you our recommendations. And as we look forward, we feel that a jet center also needs to be on the agenda for the horizon. Today, Mr. Johnny Morris from Bass Pro Shops flew in with his brand new Cessna Latitude. That airplane flies 446 knots, which is 513 miles an hour. It has a 72-foot wingspan with 62-foot overall length and 21 feet tall. A beautiful machine that out of the last 10 weekends, he's been here 7. And I think it's a beautiful thing that we start seeing jet traffic. In the last 2 days, he's bought 950 gallons of fuel. So, I mean, might be part of our future. We, your Airport Advisory Board, enjoy partnering with each one of you, serving our city and our community. We love Palakka. We love our airport. We can't say enough about John Ewell. And the advisory board just has the utmost respect for his sacrifice and service. And he does not know I'm saying this, but it's just very true. And there's not a meeting that goes by that we don't all applaud his efforts and his enthusiasm. Andrew and John have made a tremendous commitment to our city and made a lasting mark on our city's airport. So we thank you for the opportunity to serve you. Oh, yes, and also the 6-month revenue for the airport is a positive $65,000 for the last 6 months. So that report just came out today, and that's a wonderful thing that we are moving forward. And I will say also that Mr. Holmes' leadership has helped us a lot in the last few months in refocusing our finances like we have. I'm also privileged to serve with Mr. Vickers on the on the Gas Authority Board. And I'd like to just give a brief report on that. Mr. James Vickers, Mark Spalding, Brian Screen, and myself want to thank you for the privilege of serving you in our community with natural gas. For the last 61 and a half years, by 34 members past and present, we've helped our city with natural gas, and more recently also with water and sewer collections and related services. The Palakka Gas Authority has a solid foundation. Our foundation is that of supplying our residents and businesses of the Palakka area with natural gas in a safe and efficient manner. We work with FGU to buy gas, analyze the market, do market studies, negotiate plans for our sale and our supply of gas. The Palakka Gas Authority also has stable functions by providing natural gas at a just and equitable and competitive rate with other fuels that are available. We manage a very tight ship of 14 employees who, with all the required training and best-in-class equipment, are able to grow and maintain the needs of our community. We proudly express appreciation to the entire staff of Palakka Gas Authority. The Palakka Gas Authority also has a secure future in that we are financially sound and debt-free, thus being a financial asset to the citizens of the city of Palakka, and we provide funds to the general fund of the city annually. In our partnership with FGU, we also have wonderful support wonderful support asset as we plan the future together. Where to put lines, how to grow the system, the best direction, and they've been a tremendous help to us too, and they serve a lot of municipalities in Florida. Along with the Tire and Gas Authority team headed by Brett Dennis, Keith Dunham, and Ann Atkins, Mr. George Young, our council, we love serving you, our city, and our citizens in our community. And also our citizens would like to see our front office open back up. So we were thinking with good COVID practices of opening the office back up so that they can come in and pay their bills. We've mentioned this to our council, to Mr. Holmes and to Ms. Thomas. And if there's no objections, we'd like to proceed with that with caution. So if you can let us know what you think. Are there any questions or comments? And Mr. Vickers, he's good. Any questions or comments?
Commission.
Well, I just want to thank you guys for what you're doing at the airport, sure, and also at the Gas Authority, but not many cities have the luxury of just owning or having or an airport. And so we thank you guys for all you do and how you're continuously looking for ways to grow our airport. And again, it'll be debt-free supposedly here 2023. We're looking forward for that debt to roll off, and so we can utilize those funds for some other things. But we thank you guys for everything that you're doing at the airport, and looking for some growth.
Well, thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to serve you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
This is Commissioner McCaskill. I share the same sentiments as Commissioner Borum, as far as the hard work and the great job that both boards are doing. I just want to speak on reopening the lobby at the Gas Authority. I have no objection to that. I think that you all can feasibly control the crowd as they come in, and it will help with the drive-through issues that we're having as well. So that's just my input. And again, thank you for the hard work that you're doing on both boards.
Thank you too.
I was going to say the same thing as far as opening, because last meeting, we also talked about opening City Hall as well as the Gas Authority, because our customers are our first priority. And again, sentiments the same. Thank you for what all you guys do, and keep up the good work.
Commissioner Bourne?
Right. Oh, and yeah, again, we really need to think about, opening up the City Hall. And I thank Commissioner Jones for bringing that back up about the City Hall, as well as the Gas Authority. I know most of the time when I go through, sometimes there's a queue and it's wrapped around, and sometimes it prevents traffic on, I think that's 7th Street, 6th Street, or 5th Street.
5th Street.
Yes, it's on 5th Street. But anyways, traffic is proceeding backing up into Main Street or what have you. So, and it blocks 5th Street from oncoming traffic. So we really need to look at doing that as soon as we can in a safe manner.
Thank you so much. I too echo the same sentiments as everyone else. Thank you for your hard work and dedication, for both of you on your commitments to serving this city. And thank you so much. And again, I am in total agreement with the reopening of the lobby. Again, some of the things that Commissioner Bourne have stated, I too have witnessed, and that's just a safety concern for those that are parked in that line. So again, thank you for everything. Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir.
All right.
All right. Thank you all very much.
All right, we have a pretty healthy agenda, so we're going to keep it rolling. But prior to, I do want to acknowledge in our attendance tonight, our superintendent, Dr. Aaci. Thank you for joining us. And I'm sure that we'll hear from him a little bit later. At this time, we are going to move forth with our public recognition as well as presentation. Our first proclamation is for International Firefighters Day, which is May 4th. Directly following that, we will move right into our proclamation, which is Hurricane Preparedness Week, May 9th through the 15th, as well as closing our proclamations with our Mother's Day proclamation. At that time, we will ask that Ms. Hughes join us and every other mother that is in audience with us today. We have a proclamation that we will be presenting to you as well, along with Ms. Hughes, who is our honoree from the city.
Whereas hundreds of dedicated and selfless firefighters in our community provide vital and life-saving services to the citizens of their communities. At a moment's notice, these men and women risk their lives by subduing fires and rescuing those trapped in infernos, as well as saving citizens from emergencies that could have been deadly situations. And whereas the loss of life or property by fire can cause our citizens and community a great sense of grief, and whereas firefighters are always available to protect our citizens from structure fires, vehicle fires, and property fires that affect all segments of our society, and whereas firefighters assist law enforcement emergency personnel to control hazardous situations and provide excellent medical care, and whereas The firefighters contribute significantly to the continued well-being of the city of Palakka through their outstanding commitment to community service. Now, therefore, I, Terrell L. Hill, the mayor of the city of Palakka, together with the members of the Palakka City Commission, do hereby proclaim May 4th as International Firefighters Day in the city of Palakka. And we call upon our citizens to respect and honor the work of our dedicated firefighters who protect and serve us all. In witness whereof, I've set my hand and caused to be affixed the official seal of the city of Palakka this 22nd day of April in the year of our Lord, 2021.
So moved.
Second. Aye.
Aye.
I just wanted to thank you for recognizing and appreciating the work that firefighters do, not only in the city of Palatka, but across the world. And thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief.
Whereas National Hurricane Preparedness Week is May 9th through May 15th, 2021. And whereas hurricanes, which are most likely to occur between June 1 and November 30th, produce heavy winds, torrential rain, inland flooding, and tornadoes, and continue to pose a serious threat to the residents and businesses of the city of Palakka, Florida. Therefore, it is important that all residents and businesses be aware of the dangers that hurricanes present and to remain vigilant to lessen the loss of life and minimize property damage. And whereas residents should maintain emergency supply kits to use at home or during an evacuation with enough non-perishable food and water to sustain people and pets for at least 3 to 7 days, have a weather alert radio, know their shelter locations and evacuation routes, and comply with local authorities when asked to evacuate. And whereas the Special Needs Program provides disaster-related evacuation assistance and care for those without other alternatives who will need transportation assistance to a shelter and or have a health condition that requires medical attention. Those citizens are encouraged to pre-register through the Putnam County Emergency Medical Services. And whereas the Florida Division of Emergency Management, the National Weather Service, and the Federal Emergency Management Agency, otherwise known as FEMA, have joined together urging all citizens to prepare for hurricanes and to educate themselves on hurricane preparedness and safety strategies. Now, therefore, I, Terrell L. Hill, the mayor of the city of Palakka, Florida, together with the members of the Palakka City Commission, do hereby proclaim the week of May 9th through 15, 2021 as Hurricane Preparedness Week in the city of Palakka, and urge everyone in our community to act now and make ready their families and homes and stay safe and alert. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the official seal of the city of Palakka, Florida, this 22nd day of April in the year of our Lord, 2021.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Aye.
Aye.
The Mother's Day.
Would you like to say anything?
Mostly, yeah. For our area, hurricanes are one of our biggest threats. Preparedness is going to be the best way that you can beat it. Make sure that you're not waiting until the last minute when a threat is coming to go out and get water, to get your snacks. And look at what you normally have in your house. If you don't drink water all the time, if you drink Gatorade, get a couple cases of Gatorade. Get some soda for before the storm hits. You're going to want those things that you normally have with you. And don't eat all your hurricane snacks before the hurricane gets here. And yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Whereas our community's mothers lay the foundation for building strong family units and responsible citizens through the care, dedication, and sense of responsibility they instill in their children. And whereas it is important to celebrate the unique bond between mother and child and honor the compassion, unconditional love, and generosity mothers exemplify, they instill in their children. And whereas it is important to celebrate the unique bond between mother and child and honor the compassionate, unconditional love and the generosity the mothers exemplify as they nurture their children. And whereas our community has long recognized the contributions of mothers in our community, business, education, government, medicine, law, the arts, as well as civic, charitable, and philanthropic causes. And whereas motherhood is a year-round daily occupation, which our community has commemorated in honor of the personal and professional sacrifices made by mothers for the love of their children. Now, therefore, I, Terrell L. Hill, Mayor of the City of Palakka, together with the members of the Palakka City Commission, hereby endorse and proclaim May 9th, 2021 as Mother's Day in the City of Palakka. And we urge all citizens to express their love and reverence for their mothers, stepmothers, grandmothers, and mother figures of our community. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the official seal of the City of Palakka, Florida, this 22nd day of April in the year of our Lord, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Motion carried.
Commissioner, anybody want to say anything?
Do we have any of our mothers that would like to say anything? No pressure. No pressure, but pressure.
I would like to thank the city for this honor. I know that I share the struggles of being a mother with many of the moms in our community, but I definitely appreciate, as the city representative for moms having the most apparently out of all nominated candidates, that I appreciate that and appreciate having a work environment that does allow me to, think about my family as well as the work towards the city. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other mothers? Thank you so much. We'll move right along. We have come to a time where we all can celebrate the students within our community. We are now going to move forth with our Student of the Month. And Miss Commissioner McCaskill is going to assist with this on today.
Thank you, Commissioner Campbell.
Thank you.
So I'll just say to all of the students, we are so proud of the hard work and efforts that you all have put in during these most difficult times. It just proves that we all can do hard things. And I heard Commissioner Borum in a prior meeting give you all these words of encouragement, and these were my favorite. So I'll tell you the same thing. Remember, shoot, and even if you miss, you'll be among the stars. Congratulations.
Sorry for being tardy, but to our honorees, to our students, we're just excited for all that you're doing in this community. Congratulations for being awarded this honor. We want to also thank the parents and the educators for all the work that you do. It's a thankless job, but you guys go over and beyond the call of duty. And so again, we are just excited as we move forward at this time. We're going through now. Starting out with our honorees, Brown and Pierce Elementary, Lillian Andrews. CL Overturf Junior 6th grade center, Jamaria Whitfield. Just for the record, I will butcher 3 names per month. Children's Reading Center Charter School, Kyler Edgar. E.H. Miller School, Emily Boyles. James A. Long Elementary School, Delana Williams. Jenkins Middle School, Jose Ayala Ruiz. Kelly Smith Elementary School, Evelyn Mowry. Mellon Elementary School, I can pronounce this, John Carpenter. Mosley Elementary School, Naeli Rosado. Palakka High School, Helena Terrain. Pinal Baptist Academy, Isaac Rodriguez. Putnam Academy of Arts and Sciences, Cole Roberts. And Putnam Edge High School, Ayana Jordan. And again, to our students, you've heard the encouraging words from both Commissioner Campbell and Commissioner McCaskill. As we always do every month, I always like to kind of give you a recitation that we had about 40 years ago in Miss Green's third grade class over at Mosley. And we started every day out by saying, I am somebody. If my mind can conceive it and my heart can believe it, I know I can achieve it because I am somebody. You guys are somebody great. You're destined for greatness. We are so proud of you and all your accomplishments. And we look forward to you one day sitting in these seats and being the leaders of tomorrow. Let's give another round of applause to our student of the month. I want to take a special point of privilege. It's not every day I get the superintendent in here. So can you give a couple words to the student of the month for Mr. Cerns? Can you come forward and just give a couple words of wisdom to our students?
Thank you, Mayor, for having me. And I just want to congratulate our students of the month. They definitely have deserved the honor to be recognized by our city. And, you know, it's been a tough year for all of us, and especially these students that shine and kind of rise above others. We definitely want to recognize them and want to thank you, city commissioners, for taking time to honor our students. Thank you for having us here.
Thank you very much. We'll now open the floor for public comments. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. No action will be taken on topics of discussion. Anyone wishing to speak during public comment, please fill out a yellow card in the back of the room. When you come to the podium, please give your name as well as your address. For those of you who are in our cyberland, you can use the YouTube chat function, or you can dial 386-329-0100, extension 0. At this time, we'll open the floor for public comment. I've got one speaker card. Carol Ross, will you please come forward at this time for general public comment? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Very comfortable, except that I let the water out and I couldn't get out of the tub. So I had the phone. Thank goodness I did that. I had called the non-emergency and said, please send someone, but please don't, he can't be handsome. So I'm in a little house here in Palakka, 2-bedroom, little 1-bath house. And in comes 5 of them. So the one fellow was very nice. He said to the others, you can leave. And then he got behind and lifted me right up, and standing right there was a young lady that wrapped the towel around me. But I wish I'd known that trick when I was 20. Okay. Now I'm serious.
You might get an extra 30 seconds.
Now I'm serious. I live in the city, and we have a very serious noise problem, very serious. And the last on March 26th and the 27th, music was being played, and I got in the car with Rosie, the dog. cops and we went to find it before I called. And it was on Reed Street, a bar, Dick's. And there were hundreds of people on both sides of Reed Street. And that lasted till 3 a.m. And I called and was told that there's nothing that they could do. Then on 4/23, which is the day before Easter, that went on until 1 p.m. And I'm about a mile away. And so I'm looking at your records here that say that there is not to be no noise from 10 a.m. until 7 a.m. on the weekdays and 10 until 10 to 10 on the weekends. It's serious. I called Bennett Glass to see if they could put something over our windows. Neighbors are complaining. I don't know why to me, but they are. And I want to see something done. And I want to see it stopped because it's very, very bad. And the police department are saying there's nothing that can be done. They'll give them a citation and the citation will last 10 minutes and then they start all over again. So it's very annoying and I'm hoping that you'll take care of it. But here's the deal. If you don't take care of it, then I'm going to open up my own bar and I have a new name for it. It's called, what was the name? I forgot the name already. I'm talking. But no, can't think of it. Anyway, I would like for you to take it seriously. I don't know, I know neighbors are coming to me and we're all upset over 3 in the morning and it needs to stop. So, oh, I know the bar is going to be called Peekaboo. Thank you very much. What? It's on the yellow card. Thank you.
Okay. I've got it. I'll give it to him. All right. Is there anyone else here for public comment at this time? Do we have anything in the YouTube chat?
Not at this time, Mayor.
We're going to go ahead and close public comment. Moving forward to item 5 on our agenda, which is our consent agenda. Today, we've got items A through K on the consent agenda. Are there any items that you wish to have removed at this time?
I'll make a motion that we approve.
Second.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second by Commissioner Borum. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Questions called. She's quick on the trigger. Questions called. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 6 of the agenda. Item 6, District School Board presentation concerning school configuration. Mr. Cerency, you're up.
Commissioners, thank you for having me, City Manager. It's good to be back with my neighbors again across the street. So thank you for having us. We just want to take a few minutes of your time and share some information with you that I think would be very helpful for you and all of our citizens to hear about some changes that are taking place. First of all, I just want to remind you that back in February 16th, our school board voted on our revitalization plan. And basically what that entails is a 10-year plan, which involves the closing of 5 schools this year, district-wide. And with the closing of schools, we will be consolidating students with the purpose of eventually building 9 new schools in our school district over the next 10 years. And of course, that will come with seeking funding from our county in the form of a $300 million bond issue. And it would also involve seeking state funding through special facilities. So again, we're on a bold journey here, but in the meantime, we're making some immediate plans to reconfigure our schools. And in just a minute, I'm going to ask our principals to come up and share some information that I think would be very helpful about a lot of the positives that will be coming from this new configuration. But we're basically going to have all of our elementary schools starting this fall will be all kindergarten through 6 rather than a kindergarten through 5 model. We will not have a 6 through 8 model as far as middle school goes. And then once students leave 6th grade, they will go immediately into junior high school into a 7-12 configuration. And a lot of people have had questions about what that looks like. And so our principals will come in just a minute and share that information with you and be available for questions. And I will introduce them in just a minute. The other thing I want to mention to you briefly is we've started an annual tradition of recognizing graduates who have graduated from a Putnam County high school who are now serving in our community, whether they're serving in any kind of profession. We had different categories of professions, or they could actually be serving the community as a retiree. So whatever the case might be, we are seeking nominations for anyone who is a graduate of Putnam County who has now decided to come back to Putnam County and serving in our county, serving our citizens. We want to nominate them for what we call Product of Putnam. And we will be accepting nominations through May 5th. And then after May 5th, the Chamber of Commerce and the Palakka Daily News will partner with our district, and we will select an individual from about 7 different categories, different profession categories. And then we will recognize them at a school board meeting. And more importantly, we will recognize them at their former high school graduation ceremony. So it is quite an honor. And our goal is we want to bring people back to Putnam County, and we want them to get back to the place they grew up. And we want to recognize that and celebrate that. And your new city finance director, Lauren, very proud of you. Lauren actually used to teach for us, and you grew up here in Putnam County, right? So congratulations. And that's just an example of someone who has decided to come back and serve right here in our local city. So I just encourage you to go to our website. There's a place on there you can select someone, and we will definitely be reviewing those in the next coming weeks. With that, I want to introduce some of the folks that are with me today. First of all, I want to introduce Ashley McCool, who is our Director of Community Relations. And y'all known Ashley as a school-based administrator and also served in the district for a number of years. But you're going to be seeing a lot of Ashley, and she's really trying to form those partnerships between the school district and our other governmental entities and private business and the community. So Ashley, she has actually set up those meetings tonight, and we'll actually be doing the same thing with our county commission next Tuesday. But with her, she's asked our 4 high school principals, junior high, senior high principals who will be serving next year to come and just provide some information for you. And if you would, just raise your hand when I call your name. Tim Adams from Crescent City Junior Senior High, Brian Helms from Interlaken Junior Senior High, JT Stout from Palatka Junior Senior High, and Joe Theobald from QI Roberts Junior Senior High. So with that, they're going to come up and present some information. If you have additional questions afterwards, they'll be happy to do that. So thank you again for having us, and we'll ask our principals to come up at this time.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Joe Theobald. I'm the principal at QI Roberts Junior Senior High School. Thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to come and speak to you and express to you just how excited we are about the opportunity to offer growth to our community through new schools, but also through reconfiguration. So tonight we're going to be talking about, I can't work the clicker. Tonight, we're going to talk to you about the academics, the school safety concerns that we've had in mind, and also the opportunities that our students will have through athletics and extracurriculars. One more go. Okay. So academic considerations, we've had this experience at QI Roberts. We are a 7 through 12 school and have been for 6 years. What we have noticed with our students is that there's more of a seamless progression for our 7th through 12th graders. They don't have the transition year after 8th grade where they're going to a new school. And I think that has actually, there's lots of studies to show that that is a huge benefit to the students, just not having that disruption in their lives. But most importantly, we will have teacher connections that go throughout 6 years of their schooling. Relationships are the most important thing when it comes to education. And I think that this is going to give us a great opportunity at our 3 other high schools to follow this pattern. We also have wonderful programs now at all 4 high schools. QI Roberts will now be an AVID school after watching the success at Interlochen High School, Palakka High School, and Crescent City High School. So we're very excited about adopting that program. And once again, it will help us all to kind of align together to address the academic and social emotional concerns of our students. Maybe the key point with the academics, though, is going to be something that's very minute, but I'm glad to explain it right now. It's a math alignment. So many of our students don't perform as well in math as they do in the other subjects. And with the ability to have people on campus for 6 years who can communicate with each other and talk to each other about the appropriate next steps for our students in math, I think we're going to see our academic scores continue to improve. Our graduation rates are already extremely high, but we want to continue to push that. So having said that, Brian Helms is going to come speak to you about some safety considerations.
We told Tim he's going to control that the whole time because no one else wants that. One more. Is it mine? All right. So again, thank you guys. I'm Brian Helms from Interlochen High School. And again, just thank you guys for this opportunity just to kind of express this. And I know Joe covered a little bit of it, but before I start, if you have parents that contact you guys, have them call the school. We are available. We want communication's a big deal with all of us, and we can communicate a lot by a phone call or come see us if they have concerns, especially having young kids, being around seniors, So with all of this, we all have young children, all 3 principals, young teenage daughters. And so we're going to take it very seriously when it comes to safety concerns. Each school has a different process, but the basis of it is when kids arrive to school from the junior class will go to a certain individual. So at my school, it might be the gym, and at Palakka High, it might be the commons or the gym there. So we're going to keep them separate. We're also going to have every kid that comes into the school, all our schools have identification. And so we will have something on there to identify them as an underclassman. And that's very easy to see that. We have it at my school. I have it separated by colors, very easy. I know if I have junior seniors out and I have freshmen out, I can tell it instantly, hey, get back to class, get where you're supposed to be. And so that will help us monitor that. And before and after school, right now with COVID, we have different bells for each class to separate them. And that's very easy to do at the end of the day to keep them separate. A lot of people think, well, they're going to ride buses, they're going to do that. They already ride buses. At my school, when I get up, the buses get off at 8:30, and my seniors get off the bus, or my senior high gets off the bus, and then the middle school rides around the Price and gets off. They're on that bus. So they've been riding together for a while. People don't really realize that, but it's something that's been happening, and it's been working pretty well. Lunchtime, again, will be separate bells. They won't eat with the underclassmen. And so that's very easy, very simple to do. But the big thing, I think, and Joe kind of covered this, if you guys all have been in school and you have those teachers that you connect with, and if you have teacher A that really connects with Brian and they work well with Brian, I don't care if Brian is 18 or if he's 14 or if he's 12, they're going to connect with that student. And you guys know you have those teachers in your brain that you can think of right now. And so that gives us that ability for that teacher to go out and go, hey, I need to talk to Brian, or I need to talk to JT and make sure he's doing what he's supposed to. And hopefully we can keep these kids in where they need to be to graduate on time and do some great things in this county and for the state. So that is a huge, huge thing. Also with sports, you guys know we're going to have, if you haven't known, we're going to start a football team in the middle school. And again, when sometimes the middle schoolers come to me, they don't understand what it takes to keep your grades up. Because, a lot of the leagues in the county, you don't keep up with grades. And so when they come to us, they understand, hey, I got to have my 2.0. I got to have X, Y, and Z in line to make sure I stay on track. And so hopefully we were able to keep a lot of those kids in track with that. All right, you can go to the next one. So the next slide kind of is the last bullet on the last one. We also, it was very very great to see what the superintendent and the board members and the admin team downtown kind of decided with the support staff that we're going to have. So if you look at those, I'm not going to read them to you, but each high school or junior, senior high is going to increase not just the administrators that are there, but the instructional support. And that's like guidance counselors, a variety of individuals that fall underneath that, TOSAs that fall underneath that, deans. So we're going to have extra hands in that school to be able to take care of all the things that happen in a junior, senior high. So this is a great opportunity to really support the students where they need it and to break it down, because you guys know we all are stretched thin sometimes in education, but this really helps us to be able to hone in on the students who actually need it. So I look forward to this. I think it's going to be a great thing for our county. And that's all I have. Who's next? You? Tim is next. Mr. Adams.
Good evening. Looking forward to this opportunity to speak with everyone this evening. Looking forward to next year. I wanted to talk about extracurricular activities and athletics. Having the opportunity to have 7 through 12, being affiliated with the FHSAA, taking the time to have consistent expectations across all high schools, being able to monitor student GPAs, as Brian said. I think that's extremely important. The great part is having kids and having opportunities for kids to do something. You know, I think that's so critical in today's society, having that opportunity to root for kids, to challenge kids, for them to want to do well and be given opportunities, and access to a variety of clubs. When we talk about QI Roberts, having the opportunity for students who might attend Palakka High School, having some transportation to get them back to Palakka High School would support that. When we talk about clubs and things like that, just want to be able to talk about student council, the multicultural clubs that we might have at schools, the Interact clubs, National Honor Society, both, again, for all students 7 through 12. And then, of course, HOSA and other activities. I know industrial experiences, the computer science classes and things like that. So just want to really let everybody know that the more relationships we have with our kids, the better off they'll be, and the more they'll want to do well and be successful to graduate. Thank you.
JT Stout, Palakka Junior Senior High School. Appreciate the time to be here. Willie, good to see you. It's been a little while, old neighbor. Hope you're enjoying the rock garden across the road. We'll leave it at that. Yeah, okay. So we've got, with 7th and 12th grade at our schools next year, we have a lot more opportunities for our students in the CTE programs. We offer at Palakka High School, just some of them: automotive, welding, culinary arts, agriculture, HOSA with our allied health program, advanced manufacturing, among other things. And some of those others are offered at the other high schools. And now that we're 7 through 12, our 7th and 8th grade students will be able to participate in some of those programs on a wheel. And so they'll be able to be in that program and see what's going on in automotive to know if they want to do that in high school. Instead of coming to us blind as a 9th grader and I'm going to try this out, if they get to try it out as a junior high student, they're going to know what they want to do when they get to high school so that they can get those certifications and help them pursue a career. We're also going to establish more custodial support. The district has been able to write some grants for CRISA. We're going to have another custodian on staff that we currently have. We're going to be able to maintain that during the school day. We have not had outbreaks at our schools because we've been able to have an extra custodian that goes around the school while the kids are in class and they clean the high traffic areas. James Neely is the custodian at Palakka High School, and he is everywhere. I think he's lost 15 or 20 pounds this school year just because he's walking everywhere, wiping down every handrail, wiping down all of the stairs, every doorknob on every single classroom door, every office door in between classes. He's everywhere. And that's one reason why our schools have been able to remain open. We've also been able to keep a triage health room assistant. If we have any student that presents with COVID symptoms, we'll have that next year as well, and they'll be able to report to that room so that we can keep our students safe. As far as credit recovery, option 2 has been difficult. We've got kids at home that when they're at home, there's apathy that sets in, and they want to see their friends, but there may be someone at home that they couldn't come to school because of COVID. And so they've fallen behind on their grades, and they're coming to us failing multiple classes. So that when we have this credit recovery teacher, we're going to be able to help these students get back on track with their academics and graduate on time. We desperately need them to graduate on time. We know that when students come to us with being held back 1 or 2 years, the likelihood of them graduating drops 50%. So with this allocation, we're going to be able to get these students back on track to graduate on time. We're also having reading intervention teachers, because the biggest problem that we have with graduating on time is passing that state reading test. And I know at every school we've doubled, sometimes tripled our reading intervention teachers for next year. And those will help with us with our tier 2 and our tier 3 students. And I'm going to turn it back over to Joe.
You can just go on to the end. So we've talked about relationships, and we've taken up quite a bit of your time. I will reiterate what Mr. Helms said. It's so important to understand that we all have children. Some of us, our children are about to enter into the junior high school age, and some of us have children who have daughters that are in junior high school right now. So we're excited about this. It's not a thing to sit on your hands about, though. So please have folks reach out to us and contact us with questions or concerns, because we're all ready to communicate with families about what they would want to hear and need to hear as far as their students go. Finally, I'll say I think that this is, once again, a huge opportunity for our community. People are working from home, and if you look around and you want to buy a good piece of property in a wonderful state with great weather, centrally located to some amazing places, that's Putnam County. And I think that we have an opportunity by combining our schools, getting more effective when it comes to how we're educating, and investing in new schools. I think that we're going to continue to see our community grow financially and grow in prosperity in general. So I'm excited. If y'all have any questions, that's why we've come, and thank you again for letting us speak to you.
Any questions or comments?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I'm super excited about this opportunity. I think it's a step forward, a much needed step forward for our community. Better schools, even though we know the change is not easy for everyone. I think once we get into the actual routine of it, I think everyone will be at ease. So thank you for taking charge. Thank you, Dr. Cernsey, for having a vision for this community to help move this school district forward. And I look forward to continuing to work with y'all to make sure that that vision becomes a reality. Thank you so much.
Well, yes, I too share that same sentiment as Commissioner Campbell. And yes, it was some hard decisions had to be made again. And I just want to take my hat off to the decisions had to be made in order to help to move this this county forward. And I think we're on the upside of things as it related to the decision that was made, closing 5 schools, and we're getting 10 out of the deal. And the transitions I can see as being really, really tough on students. And I think that's going to help out a great deal, in addition to the programs that's offered. Because when you have junior high and high school with the program split, with just having everything at the high school does increase the opportunity for students to be able to take part in those advanced courses and CTE programs and different things of that nature. So I really want to thank y'all for all the hard work you guys put into it. And it's looking bright. Future's bright.
I have a comment as well. This is Commissioner McCaskill. First, I want to start off by letting JT know if I knew that you would be there tonight, I would have left your basket of grapefruits at my desk. So we'll leave that right there, JT. I just want to say that I'm excited to be see the direction that the district is headed. Not only am I honored to be a part of this as an employee, but also as a grandparent. My grandkids get to experience these new opportunities. I want to say thank you to all of you all that put in the hard work and effort to make this happen. Thank you to Dr. Cernsey and the admin team for allowing different stakeholders to have a seat at the table and have a voice in this process. I'm willing to, serve as an employee, a grandparent, and a community member to make sure that this process, this transition happens real smoothly. So thanks.
I wasn't in favor of the move. However, I am going to applaud you guys for keeping the public aware and his attempts to educate them on the process and inclusion. I really, Dr. Cerency, and the principals here, I really appreciate that part of what you guys are doing. It's going to grow on me. I'm going to accept it like everybody else. Something new has changed. And I would like to applaud you guys for the steps that you are taking at this part of the transition.
I can't hear the mayor, I'm sorry.
Change is new and change is difficult. And to present a new idea to a community that has such history is always difficult. We've seen it happen previously with Crescent City Junior Senior High School, maybe the pilot study for what's happening now a few years back. And so we always worry about the social aspects. I think that's something that you guys addressed in great detail. But I've also had an opportunity to talk to Mr. Cerency as well as Mr. Boland as it relates to the transition, and a little bit with Mr. Stout. And I think more than anything else, within each change, there are always concerns from the city government side. And I think that our biggest concern is that schools are being closed. We want to make sure that as community partners, we communicate effectively to make sure that we don't increase blight. We don't find ourselves in the situation as to what we've had historically with places like the old Central Academy Elementary School or high school, where those buildings have been abandoned and the community has been left to feel the blows of what's in place. I wholeheartedly don't believe that this administration will do that. But we also have to make sure that in our plans, as we move forward, we start to address what the future endeavors will be as it relates to the schools that are adjacent to railroad tracks that won't necessarily receive the same funding as those properties become available. It creates great opportunities for us to be able to preserve history and to be able to create new life and new opportunities. For example, it may be a housing development, it may be an educational center, which allows folks to gain the vocational education pieces that are missing. We know that within this state, we no longer have carpenters and masons in the same way. And surprisingly, the majority of the ones that still exist are in Putnam County. A lot of the great tradesmen came through the programs of Jake Harmon and some of the other folks, and they still live in Putnam County, and they learned in the school system how to make a living, and they passed it on to many generations. And we need to make sure that as we prepare this next generation, that vocational education, masonry, carpentry, those things are not lost on where we move forward. And so there may be opportunities for us all to work together. I appreciate you guys coming in here because it sends a message that we're no longer willing to work in silos inside of Putnam County, that we're willing to come and meet each other where we are and begin to have real conversations about what each organization's doing. Because the reality of it is this: school performance affects the way people move into the city. Crime affects the way people decide what schools to come to and move into the city. So your bottom line is affected by what we do inside the city from a decision-making process, and our bottom line is affected by the things that you do. And we can no longer place the onus on one group and not have a team process. I'm excited about the future announcement that's going to come up as it relates to the opportunity that exists to give this commission a chance, as well as the school district a chance to say, we're going to look at the closing of Jenkins and see what we can do with the former Northside Neighborhood Facility Center, to preserve the name of Jenkins, to preserve the name of Central Academy, and to be able to create a haven within the community, even during the time when closings are taking place, so that people realize that we're all moving forward, but we're all thinking about what's best for our citizens. And so, again, gentlemen, I commend you as well as the superintendent for coming forward and including the city of Palakka in this. There will be a long series of conversations that I hope continue to take place between both entities as it relates to everything that's happening in the future. When it comes to master plan communities, we hope that the schools will be an integral part of that, because one day we're going to see those master plan communities come into Putnam County and into the city of Palakka. And we want the school district to be there as we talk about impacts on education, as we talk about impacts in total. And so no longer will we operate in silos, but we're committed as a commission to do just what you've done today, and that's stand beside you and work with you as opposed to working against you. And so again, thank you for being here, and thank you for and thank you for bringing the presentation to us and informing the citizens. Thank you. Let's take a 5-minute recess. Show us back on the record. Next up is item number 7, adopt resolution 2021 R48, authorizing execution of a professional environmental services agreement with Ayers and Associates for Palakka Brownfields Phase 2 supplemental area assistance in the amount of $8,200. Mr. Griffith.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. We have with us tonight Mr. Ben Piotr from Ayers and Associates. He's currently under contract with the city. Speak into it a little bit more. Thank you. As I said, Ayers and Associates is currently under contract with the city under the current grant agreement with US EPA. This is phase 2 of our efforts, and it's primarily phase 1 and phase 2 site assessments, as well as some engineering and planning activities centered around the transportation hub at North 11th Street. This proposal came about after a couple conversations with some community members, as well as US EPA, Florida Brownfield staff, and Ayers and Associates. What this proposal will do, and Mr. Piotr is going to go into the detail of the different steps that Ayers and Associates will take us through, it'll put another tool in our economic development toolbox. Essentially, either the city or a private entity would be able to use the area-wide designation to do voluntary cleanup efforts and to be able to put in place tax credits, either at the state or federal level. If and when the city perform those voluntary cleanup efforts, they would have to go through a broker to sell those credits on the open market. To do so, we'd have to put an RFP out, or alternatively, the city could turn the property over at a higher market value or a reduced market value, however, and what incentive the commission decides at that point. The private sector, it's a way to, as the EPA puts it, kind of level the playing field between what they term greenfield sites, those without contaminant issues, and brownfield sites. It makes underwriting these development deals a lot easier because there are additional costs associated with cleanup related to hazardous materials and even perceived contamination on site. So with all that said, I'm gonna go ahead and introduce Mr. Piotr. He should be on the call right now. I think Sonny has his presentation queued up, and myself and Ben are available for any questions after he gets through the presentation.
Well, it's also important to note that this would not come at a cost to the city, because we had about $10,000, as I recall, plus or minus left in a grant. We would lose that $10,000 at a time specific in the near future, relatively near future. When we started talking about doing a brownfield designation and perhaps hiring a consultant, Jonathan mentioned that he thought we had a grant with some money that was still in it that we might lose if we didn't use. We then contacted Ayers and Associates, and they gave us a bid for conducting the assistance or providing the assistance at about $8,200, was it? Which will be well within the 10,000. So we would end up using that grant money up, but not having to come out of pocket. And so that's also important for us to understand, is this is an opportunity that really doesn't come at a cost out of our general budget.
All right, thank you. This is Ben Piotr. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I'm an environmental engineer with Ayers, and I'm assisting, as noted, with the implementation of the city's EPA Brownfield Grant Work Plan. As part of that grant work plan, eligible costs include establishing this brownfield designated area, which are 100% grant covered, including our costs. I'll hit on the highlight of what this entails, and there'll be more details and information in the slides. First, a brownfield designated area is a Florida statute designation for an area that may contain one or more brownfield sites, some of which may or may not be contaminated, and has been designated by a local government by resolution. These areas are often part of other community redevelopment areas. This provides a defined area to entice owners or the city to address any environmental contamination voluntarily for the purpose of redevelopment of that property, improving this area and increasing property values. This would be the framework for which specific sites could then be enrolled in this program. Owners in the larger area who are not comfortable with the designation can opt out prior to this establishment. If you can see my slides, or the slides presented by city staff, The potential brownfield designated area is generally encompassed as currently outlined in red. This designation area may be formally defined with city input and with other future public input at a future meeting. Property owners would then apply to the city to be enrolled and for the city to help facilitate interactions with FDEP, and would then need to comply with any other city requirements in the establishment of this program. Those requirements may include economic or job creation requirements, financial ability requirements, compliance with designated areas, or so forth. The person responsible for the brownfield site rehabilitation would then execute a brownfield site rehabilitation agreement pursuant to state FDEP statutes. As Jonathan mentioned, primarily the primary incentive is a voluntary tax cleanup credit, which is an incentive that could pay tax credits up to 50% of incurred costs for site rehabilitation or solid waste removal, up to a maximum of $500,000. There's other incentives as well, such as job creation incentives and other building material incentives. On city clean sites, they would be able to sell these tax credits for approximately 90 cents on the dollar, according to staff familiar with this program in another large Florida community, though the actual amount could fluctuate based on market conditions. Based on the financial incentive, this is a favorable step in pursuing a third EPA Brownfield Planning and Assessment Grant, which is a $300,000 match-free program, of which the city has successfully applied and received two in the past. The second grant that we're currently in right now is likely to have funds mostly expended as early as late 2021. If adopted, the next steps would be to formalize the area and engage in a public engagement process to educate and inform the community and owners in this area prior to adopting a formal resolution establishing the brownfield designated area. Though not required, this would include mailers to residents and in the proposed designated area to opt out as a public engagement approach. Finally, a formal resolution meeting would be held to establish this area, at which point notification to FDEP would be made. In this final summary slide, it kind of summarizes the approach that we outline. And in addition, once established, there'd be a protocol established as to how interested site owners would then apply to the program. So that's a pretty brief summary. And at this point, if there's any questions, I believe I can entertain those, and Jonathan may have some further insight in specific to the city of Palatka.
Yeah, I just want to make one comment. We just threw the map up for kind of the purpose to get the ideas going or to get everybody's input. That actual boundary would be set at a later date. You could go smaller, or you could even designate the entire city. So we just felt the need to kind of throw something up on the screen.
Any questions or comments from the commission? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second by Commissioner McCaskill. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Questions called. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Again, thank you very much.
And let me see if I can get out of here and stop sharing my screen. Sorry about that.
Next up, item number 8, discussion and direction to staff regarding the practice of authorizing the Palakka Daily News to issue yard sales. Mr. Holmes.
Mr. Mayor, as I think I have indicated to one or more of you by email, the practice at the city of Palakka apparently has been to allow yard sale permits to be issued by the Palakka Daily News. I'm not weighing in favor of or against the practice. I'm simply bringing to the attention of the board that our ordinance indicates that yard sale permits will be issued by the finance director or her designee. Maybe at some point in the past, the Palakka Daily News was designated by the finance director. I honestly don't know. But the ordinance that we have in place right now essentially provides no criteria for the issuance of yard sale permits other than to say that only 2 per year can be issued per address. There's been maybe not as regimented a procedure as could have been implemented to account for the permits that have been issued. They're issued by the Daily News. I think the city has been getting copies at some point in time, but I don't think there's been any attempt to track the addresses or the number of permits issued or the locations the permits have been issued. So I asked the city attorney to take a look at our ordinance and also to take a look at the general question of whether or not the city can delegate to a non-related third party or non-governmental entity the responsibility of issuing a permit, city authorized permit. And so with that, if I could, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Thomas. Ms. Thomas.
Okay, pursuant to the manager's request, I did some research on this. And yes, the city can delegate their legislative responsibility in this matter. However, it must be, they must establish rules and regulations and bind them in a contractual obligation as to what those rules are, so that the functions and actions of the Palakka Daily News would be purely ministerial. They would just be doing the paperwork. They could not make any decisions. They could not exercise any discretion at all. It would be just pursuant to the guidelines that were promulgated by the commission.
Any questions, comments from the commission at this time? Commissioner
Yes,
Boyle?
I'll just say, but in terms of monitoring, who would do the monitoring as it relates to if we can only have 2 per year? If all they're going to be doing is basically just issuing, who would the onus fall on in terms of monitoring and tracking?
Well, presently, most of the permits are handled by the community affairs, recreation, that department. And so it would become part of under their umbrella in order to assume this. But it would be also, there would be other departments that would be affected by this decision. It would be them, the police department, fire, finance. And I mean, at this point, there is not a fee for that service.
And the ordinance prohibits us charging a fee as it is written
Right now.
Or the ordinance can be changed. That's up to you.
Any other comments, questions?
Well, yep, I was just trying to sort it out in terms of the compliance side of it. And I don't know, from a standpoint of whenever a permit is issued, I thought there was some timing issues associated with that. You know, the timing as it relates to when the Palakka Daily News does it, certain things wasn't being given back to the city from what I understand.
I don't think that there's been a diligent attempt to make sure that copies of the permits have been provided to the city in the past. As I said, I wasn't even aware of how the practice evolved, but at this point, we simply wanted to understand the commission's desires and wishes. And if you wished us to come up with a set of guidelines, an issue that is kind of a side issue is if it's a single residential yard sale, then it normally probably won't present too many traffic or other problems. But recently there was a multi-family yard sale in a residential district. I think about 15 families or 15 residences involved that could have presented some traffic or other issues. So, you know, we can try to come up with some guidelines if the commission gives us some direction, i.e., you know, single family yard sales are kind of perfunctory, granted, as long as they don't exceed 2 per year. If it's going to be more than one family involved, there could be a greater review process, but we just need some direction as to how we go.
Commissioner Campbell.
I would make the recommendation that we temporarily pull them from being able to issue those permits until we on the city side have something in concrete that we're able to provide to them as far as direction or some kind of plan of action, just to ensure that if we do have them to represent as a third party, that they're completely following what we as a city desire to ensure, you know, protocol is followed. So I would make that to temporarily pull them from being able to issue that permit until we're able to come up with said documentation.
Second.
Was that a motion?
I
That's what he
suppose.
meant. That's what it-
So before we get into that, let's make sure, let's hold up on it being a motion for a second, and because I didn't hear it being given as a motion. It was more of a recommendation at this
Well,
point.
it was a recommendation, but I would make a motion to echo those things. So
Well,
that is a motion. Yes, sir.
Now, finally, we have a motion. Now can we get a second? Second, well, he hadn't seconded since the motion was formally made.
Yeah, I made a second.
So now there's a second by Commissioner Bohr. Now there's discussion. My discussion is, this thing has been going on. There's the law as written, there's the law as applied. Those are two different things. And I think what's happened is the practice has been institutionalized for an extended period of time, probably longer than all of us have been living, as far as it relates to yard sales, because it's something that typically we wouldn't even really think of. I think in this day and age, the fact that you've got a yard sale in place, which engages an entire community, particularly during the pandemic, it created red alerts and its own set of challenges, and it actually opened our eyes to something that's been a void for a number of years of what we have. Wholeheartedly agree that as we do yard sales, the yard sales that don't require a fee should be those that are for single residences. And we can simply meet with the Palakka Daily News and say, hey, we need to create a system where we track them. You can't, as a part of what we're doing with this agreement, you can't violate our ordinance as it exists in order to get certain things in place. Then we need to look at the fact that if we're doing commercial yard sales or any commercial event that meets the definition of a yard sale, that's community-wide events, things of that nature. Those things take greater planning as it relates to all the safety things that are in place, and it comes before community affairs, and we've got a special events team that can assess inherent dangers that come out of that. Multi-residential yard sales, the same way, need to have that same onus. And the other thing we got to think of when we start talking about this is making sure that when we do that, you got to understand that you're going to have a representative from police, fire, community affairs, probably including code enforcement and at least one assistant coming in there taking notes. You're going to have the city attorney who's going to be involved in some capacity, and maybe even the city manager, depending on what size it gets to. And you're dealing with resources as it relates to that. And if it's free, then all we're doing is giving away time and energy. We don't want to do it to the extent that it creates an undue burden on the citizen as a whole, but we want to make sure that we at least cover some of the basic costs that go into dealing with these issues and when they have to be reviewed by multiple people. And so we all have to think about, what would be a cost to do a commercial event as opposed to doing just a regular yard sale for one residence. And so those are things that we have to look at. The reality of it is this: we haven't really been in the yard sale business for a long time. When you really think about how we pass the responsibility on, but if it's to be passed on, then they need to be given the rules so they can understand what has to be enforced. There needs to be some type of agreement or memorandum of understanding in place so that as the newspaper does this and they collect a fee for advertising, that they understand that it has to be in compliance with what the city has. And we also need to make sure that they have a written document which addresses what our safety concerns are with all of these events. And so we provide the forms for the registration, and that registration needs to cover all the concerns of the commission as a whole and staff. And I think that's the difference as to where we are now. I don't necessarily know. I think it's okay to suspend yard sales, but I wouldn't suspend the single residence yard sale at this point. I would suspend any multi-residence or commercial yard sale, or at least have it, or at least mandate temporarily that it goes through community affairs.
Yes, sir. It wasn't within my statement to cancel them completely. I just wanted us to pull the responsibility temporarily from the Palakka Daily News until we're able to come up with format. But if you want to add that, I mean, I can make that a motion, or I can amend my motion to add that we allow them to move forth with the single family, and they are no longer able to issue for multifamily
Multifamily and commercial.
and commercial.
Commercial ones are governed by a different section.
I'm sorry.
I couldn't hear council.
Sorry. The commercial, we call them yard sales, midnight sales, whatever, overstock sales. They are governed by section 94-200. So they don't fit within this section, which is 78.79, which has to do with the residential yard sales.
Yeah, and we still don't see them. But
They're supposed to go through community affairs to seek a permit for those types of commercial,
the law as written and the
Yeah.
law as applied.
yard sales.
So
Is the multifamily, it falls underneath that same section? I'm just trying to, I know you mentioned the commercial fall under 94.
Mr.
but-
Salmon, can I ask you a question right quick as we're doing that? Can you come forward just for a second? How does the county address yard sales historically? What have you seen?
They don't really acknowledge them. You have limited resources. You choose your fights. That's not a fight they chose to deal with. So if it gets messy and it stays open for weeks, then we dealt with it at the county. But if it's just a couple days, they never did deal with it.
News is issued in the county's permits as well.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So there's something that needs to be brought up in our county, what you call a meeting.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing, thank you.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing again is you look at the number of resources that are expended, and you try to put the teeth in your ordinance to deal with the issue, so that you limit the opportunities that you have to have your staff engaged in those things. But also there are controls, and when the controls are broken, then you take that. You have to take that responsibility back to make sure that you're ensured that safety is being put in place.
In response to Commissioner Borum's question, section 78-179 deals with residential, whether it's multi-residential, single residence, it's residential yard sales that governs that. It's commercial, it's like I said, it's a different section. It's 94-200.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right. So we've got a motion on the floor. Are you amending your motion?
To add
The residential pieces and commercial pieces, or are you keeping it the same?
I can add the residential and commercial component that you spoke about.
Is that okay with the second?
Yes.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor to suspend multi-residential or commercial yard sales until such time that, well, to take the responsibility for multi-residential and commercial yard sales from the Palakka Daily News, to take those responsibilities from the Palakka Daily News and bring them in-house until such time as ordinance has been rewritten. So, and there's a second on the floor by Commissioner Borum. Is that a correct statement of your motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. Commissioner McCaskill, I just want to make sure that you're included in this conversation. Is that, you have any further discussion?
I do not. Question.
Okay, questions called. All in favor, say aye. Oppose? Motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you. Moving on, you're gonna take these items out of order. We'll start out with the adopt resolution 2021 R50, termination of the DOC work squads contract. And that's gonna be W1112 and W1143. Mr. Griffith.
Commissioners, Mayor. Recently, we've had some internal conversations about some of our contractual services, specifically the Department of Corrections work squad agreements. Mr. Holmes, myself, and Mr. Ladd, who apologizes he couldn't be here tonight. He wasn't feeling well, as well as key staff from Public Works Operations have met multiple occasions to talk about this. We went back and looked at the attendance log for the Department of Corrections crew for a 6-month period. And based upon, our calculations, they were attending approximately 39% of the time. That was calculated based upon actual days in attendance and what we get for an average number of inmates for the past 5 or so years. That's not a good metric. Basically, you're not getting the service that you're paying for. Some of that is due to COVID-19, but I will tell you, based upon my observations and dealing with these squads for over 10 years now, the city does not get priority treatment. The state, the Department of Transportation, it's actually written into their agreements for squads that if there's a shortage of inmates, they get priority with their squads getting filled. So there were times even prior to COVID-19 that the city would not have inmates, on a daily basis. And we would have to adjust and figure out how to get the tasks of that given day done. Now those tasks, you need to understand what we're talking about here. The inmate squads, in combination with other private contractual services and in-house staff, do what we call grounds maintenance and right-of-way maintenance. Anything from edging of curb lines to mowing right-of-ways, mowing cemeteries, parks, cutting trees, anything you can imagine under the sun. Right now, we have advised finance not to pay the next quarter for the DOC squads. We are paid through May 23rd. There is 1 quarter left on both contracts. There is a 30-day termination notice. So if you approve staff to move forward with this tonight, we will be within that 30 days to terminate for the final quarter. These contracts come up in August. We do have to provide them notice if we want to continue with the contracts. Staff is not proposing that we go that route, mainly because as we move into the growing season, we do have no assurance that we're going to be able to perform and complete the normal services that we provide the citizens of Palakka. So moving forward, we have a couple options. One is we gear up and staff up with in-house staff. But as you know, and what you're probably seeing out in the public, it's kind of hard to hire people right now. I won't talk about why that is. I don't really know. I just know that is something that is real and that we're experiencing right now. In the future, we want to make sure that we present options to you that remains balanced. So that if at any given time, if you have somebody that can't perform a contractual service, you either have enough in-house staff or other contractual staff or contractual services where you can complete those tasks. We can keep the cemeteries mowed. We can keep the right-of-ways looking presentable. We can keep the riverfront park looking presentable. I've got some numbers here if you'd like to get into those details. Simply put, if you cancel these contracts based upon the next item that's on the agenda, we believe that we can make it through the growing season. We can keep the cemeteries mowed and all the other grounds mowed and keep everything presentable. But we do need to move in a direction where we're not totally reliant and heavily balanced on private contractual services. So during the budget workshops, we'd be having conversations with you about adding some additional staff members in the next year or so, and then scaling back on some of those contractual services. Now, the total of contractual services that is under a separate item, the item after this, is $84,000. That is to contract with Aaci Services. They were procured under a public bid. They are the low apparent qualified bidder, and they would be mowing Oak Hill East, Oak Hill West, and Westview Cemetery. The contract specifies that there are 41 mows per year that get you through your growing season and infrequent mows through the non-growing season so that you can basically keep things looking presentable. We've had contractual services with this company before. I'm sure you're aware they used to be under the name of Ashley's Lawn Service. They were performing services on the riverfront. That contract termed out this year. They do a good job. We can recommend them. We know who we're dealing with. Other than that, All I would say is it's not a situation we like to be in. We have a good track record and a good history with the Department of Corrections. It's been a good source of reliable labor, way back. We used to have 3 squads in addition to 15 staff people. Now we're down to about 8 or 9 staff and 2 squads. So you can kind of see what we're up against here.
Jonathan, can you advise the savings that we would realize by terminating the DOC contracts?
Yes, some simple math here. Both of the contracts total up to $117,219. We budget approximately $30,000 to $32,000 for riverfront mowing. So that totals out to $147,219. With the $84,000 in expense to AACI, you've got savings totaling up to $63,219. So that leaves you some room either to direct us to put on some additional staff members, contract for additional services. But to answer Mr. Holmes' question, $63,219 in savings.
And our contracts are not based on per hour or per person or per event. They're annual contracts. So when he tells you that we've had a 39% no-show, that basically means that we've paid for services that we didn't get 39% of the time up to this point. Secondly, I will mention that we met with our staff to find out what we thought the most efficient service would be to contract and which one staff wished to continue to perform. And I'm talking about our maintenance people, the people who actually do the work. And that's how we arrived at the decision to seek to contract out the cemetery mowings. Staff believes it can do a better, more efficient, and I guess, quite frankly, they would prefer to do the riverfront and the other mowings rather than the cemetery. So that's how we arrived at the suggestion that we have.
So to summarize the steps that would need to occur if you decide to move forward with staff's recommendation, if you provide direction to terminate the contracts, we would then send a notice of termination, most likely by close of business tomorrow. We'd also, which I'm pretty sure they would gather from that notice of termination, we'd send an email. They've been requesting if we were going to renew or enter into new contracts in August, we'd go ahead and advise them that we are not. Finance has already been told to withhold payment. That's through May 23rd, so that's not an issue. And then we'd be recommending on the next item to award the bid to Aaci Services. One more point of clarification, because it's in my memo, and this was something Mr. Holmes wanted to make sure we had. Within the turf maintenance services agreement, there is a 30-day termination for any reason. So if at some point next year you want to reduce those scope of services, the city could do that.
With that being said.
So question, I have a question before you do that. A question, looking at the responders, Brightview Landscape brought in, I guess we'll do one. We'll move back to the item on the turf maintenance contract after we go ahead and address the issue of terminating the contract with DOC. So at this time, I entertain a motion unless there's some other conversation about DOC. I entertain a motion as relates to the contract.
I'll make a comment and a motion.
You got a
I got a comment first, Commissioner Bourne. In reference to DOC, we talked about partnerships and the longevity of this partnership that we have had with DOC. What efforts have been made to actually speak with personnel of a DOC about the service level that we are not satisfied with at this point?
So in my previous role, Public Works Director, actually we communicated with DOC staff at the actual prison on a weekly basis. Our staff would actually communicate with the guard on a daily basis, our supervisors and superintendents. Mr. Ladd has been in direct communication with the warden. The warden is sympathetic to our needs, but again, as I previously stated, they're getting their mandates out of Tallahassee, and if they're being told not to send inmates out, they can't send inmates out. And prior to that, if they're being told to give priority to the DOT squads, they got to give priority to the DOT squads.
And not send staff out as well.
Correct.
So,
Was it due to inclement weather hazards? I mean, I'm just trying to get a feel of, what got us to this point where we're about to terminate a contract that have been used for so long. So in those talks, they just can't accommodate us? Is that what it is?
No, sir, they can't. They, be it the mandates from the state and to not send inmates out initially because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And then after that, they just don't have the inmates to send out right now. And again, they don't give the city or the municipality or the county contracts priority over the Department of Transportation contracts. Previously, years back, Commissioner, we would see this from time to time, but we still had an attendance rate in excess of 80%. So it was still financially beneficial for the city to stay in those contracts versus in-house staff or other contract services. I think it's just a combination of the pandemic, a combination that we don't get priority, and we got grass to mow.
Okay, so I have 3 questions. My second question is, with the logic of the pandemic, we know everybody is kind of like stretched thin or not providing the same service levels as they have been in the past due to the pandemic and scaling back. And you mentioned about we can't hardly hire people to go out and actually mow grass. The prison DOC is having an issue with having manpower. What about these, I'm gonna say small, but these companies that put in bid? Do you think they would have those same challenges maybe of getting people to come to work under the same circumstances to fulfill the same scope of work that we're asking DOC to perform? And the reason why I ask that is the new contract states 41 mows per year. How many do we have in the contract with DOC for the year?
So the contract with the Department of Corrections is not structured in the same way that the contract with AACI is structured. The DOC contract was basically the city is contracting for the services of a guard. There is no performance specifications as to what they're going to accomplish. There's no attendance specifications. They say they'll bring out up to 5 inmates, but on average, we saw about 3.5. So compared to AACI, that is a performance-based contract. It actually specifies the type of grass, what the maximum height can be, what the minimum height can be, the frequency of mows, as well as other more detailed specifications. So if they're not performing, we don't pay.
And you can term the contract.
Yep.
Which is, and we've had to do that in the past.
I just want to make clear the
Good
reason.
question.
I want to know.
Yep.
The other questions?
That was all 3 of them.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
So, go ahead, Commissioner. And I'll
Well,
say something.
that answered my question, because I was just thinking, in what way could we do like maybe a performance-based contract and make sure that those, if they're not providing those services, then they don't get paid, and that's structured in the contract and agreed upon. So it sounds like AAI will be able to do that, but under the current contract that we have with DOC, with the work squad contract, a DOC is not, it's not in there. That performance piece is not in there. So
Well, it was one of the things that if you recall back when we went to AgriPro for, what was it?
Yeah, we actually contracted with AgroPro and
AgroPro.
Ashley's Lawn Services.
Remember, we did AgriPro initially with the baseball fields, with the baseball fields alone. And that was one of the reasons, was because the prison crews were not doing any detail work. And, and that was part of what was in place. The other thing I think that's something that the commission needs to consider, it's going to come up in the future. It's a trend that we're seeing in government all around right now. About 1.5 years ago, the city of Gainesville, probably 2 years now, the city of Gainesville adopted a resolution to no longer use prison labor. And they got a work release facility in their community, but they adopted a resolution to no longer use prison labor because it was in violation of the 13th Amendment. And if you read the 13th Amendment to this Constitution, it talks about free labor, and it talks about it talks about the fact that The only time that it's permissible in the United States to use slave or free labor is when they are in a corrective, if they're in a detention facility in jail, basically. It's a prison work crew type situation. And so you're seeing cities all around the country begin to take steps to say, we aren't gonna use prison workforces. We pay for the guard. We don't pay a penny to the inmates. And when I think about where we are, we have become extremely dependent upon prison labor to men who don't get anything other than game time for the work that they do. And you know, and I just don't think that you can build your whole department and be completely reliant upon it. The pandemic has really shown us over the course of time just how dependent we are on the labor that we get from the prison. But when you think about it from a humanity standpoint, or when I think about it from a humanity standpoint, I don't think any man should go to work and not get a penny for his Lord, not get a penny for what he does, regardless of where he's at in life, what station he's in. And I wholeheartedly believe that, you know, we need to look at our position as it relates to prison labor. The city has benefited from the labor of the young men who've come here. Yeah, we oftentimes try to build a rapport and a relationship and do some positive things with the Department of Corrections. But I think the day has come that the whole chain gang crew and the workforce, that workforce piece, work squad piece, we need to pull away from it. We need to look at the opportunities to tap into entrepreneurs or do what we did initially, which was create right-of-way crews to deal with this stuff. But I don't think we need to be here saying we're going to continually hire guards to bring in free inmates to do work when we've got people in this community who need work. We've got citizens on a regular basis. One of the things that if you look at the staff that we brought in, we've got some young men who started out on the right-of-way crew. And while there are challenges and there's sometimes a lot of babysitting that goes on with those situations, at the end of the day, there are opportunities. We got some retirees who actually want to come back and they're chomping at the bits to do some additional work, which will free up staff to do some stuff. We are understaffed and we're seeing a trend of people privatizing mowing and some of these other things. The reality of it is this: if we create a training ground and teach people how to work when they're young, they'll take these jobs. But we've also got to make sure we do our part in making sure that it's viable. And so my question has been answered, which was looking at those bids. The bid for the riverfront was $19,000 from the company that had the water management from Brightview, which had water management as one of its customers, and their landscape is usually pretty impeccable, and also Marsh Creek Country Club. And so it almost, to me, makes more sense to look at awarding the riverfront to, you know, if we can separate the bid, awarding it out, because it may be a cost savings on us. At $19,000 for the riverfront, that's a lot cheaper than we can do with one employee.
Mr. Mayor, are we going to go ahead and deal with the issue of terminating the DOC work squads?
We are, but I wanted to make sure that the record had my concerns on there. And so if there's any further discussion on the motion, we'll hear it at this time. If not, I'll call the question. You got anything else?
Well, I mean, I totally agree with the mayor as it relates to the city participating in using work crews. I'm not a big fan of it, and I know the city benefited for years, and so I think, you know, we might need to put that somewhere, and where we the city no longer participate and abolish the use of any work crews going forward.
All right. You've heard from you've heard everybody's comments. Are there any other comments as it relates to the motion on the floor to terminate the contract? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Excuse me? This is what we're on the next item now.
So, Sonny, I just want to make sure the record's clear. Who made the motion to terminate?
I made the motion. I was making the motion in the very beginning piece of it. But I'll redo the motion.
No, I just want to make sure the record was clear. We weren't sure.
We got into the discussion
Discussion.
piece of it.
And for the record, who is the second?
McCaskill seconded, right?
I don't remember it being formally made
I'll
and
second it
seconded.
tonight. I'll second.
There was a formal motion. I'll do it again just for the sake of us doing it again after we just had 2 hours of discussion on it. Will someone please give me a motion to terminate the contract for the Department of Corrections?
I make a motion to terminate DOC work support contract.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Campbell. Any further discussion on the motion again?
Question.
Any questions called? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on. Moving on to adopt resolution number 2021 R49, awarding the turf maintenance bid Aaci Services Incorporated, an amount of $84,000.
Mayor, could we move on to the next item? I have Ms. Tucker double checking the invitation to bid to make sure the city reserved the right to award to separate contractors. If you just give us a few minutes, I believe that was going to come up in discussion on this item.
Okay. All right. Moving on to item number 11, public hearing. Public hearing, ordinance annexing and amending the future land use map from Putnam County Urban Services to City of Palakka Residential Low Density RL and rezoning 2702 Cecile from Putnam County Residential R1A to City of Palakka Residential R1A, case PB 20-03, applicant Herbert and Vicky Colbert, first reading. Item A is the annexation ordinance 2102, first reading.
The annexation ordinance reads as follows. An ordinance of the city of Palakka, Florida, annexing into the corporate limits of the city of Palakka, Florida, certain adjacent territory identified as 2702 Cecile Avenue, Palakka, Florida, 32177, Hudson's addition to Palakka Heights, MB1, pages 18 and 19, block 4, part of lot 4, official records book 482, page 1439, contiguous to the boundaries of the city of Palakka, Florida, and providing for an effective date.
So move.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor by Commissioner Borum. There's a second by Commissioner Campbell. Before we get into that, Mr. Selman, do you have anything?
Nothing. This is a classic example of somebody wanting water and sewer, and the planning commission heard the case in November at their November meeting and approved it, recommended approval.
Okay. All right. We'll now open the floor for public hearing. Is there anyone here for public hearing? If you are in Cyberland, 386-329-0100, extension 0, or you can place your comment in the YouTube chat. If you're here publicly, you can fill out a yellow speaker's card. Is there anyone in the YouTube chat?
Not at this time, Mayor.
Seeing no one in the YouTube chat, we'll close public hearings. Any further comment from the commission? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on, future land use amendment ordinance 21-03 for adoption.
The ordinance reads as follows. An ordinance of the city of Palakka, Florida, providing that the future land use map of the adopted comprehensive plan be amended with respect to the following parcel of land, which is less than 10 acres in size, from the Putnam County Urban Service, U.S., to the city of Palakka, RL, for the following property: 2702 Cecile Avenue, Palakka, Florida, 32177, Hudson's addition to Palakka Heights, map book 1, pages 18 and 19, block 4, part of lot 4, official records book 482, page 1439, contiguous to the boundaries of the city of Palakka, Florida, and providing for an effective date.
So move.
It's a motion on the floor by Commissioner Borum. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner McCaskill. Now up on the floor, public hearing. Is there anyone here for public hearing? Again, the number is 386-329-0100, extension 0. You can use the YouTube chat function, or you can fill out a yellow speaker's card. Is there anything in the YouTube chat?
Not at this time, Mayor.
Close public hearing. Is there any further discussion from the commission? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item C, rezoning ordinance 21-04, first reading.
The ordinance reads as follows. An ordinance of the city of Palakka, Florida, providing that the official zoning map of the city of Palakka, Florida be amended from Putnam County Residential R1A to City of Palakka Single Family Residential R1A for the following property: 2702 Cecile Avenue, Palakka, Florida, 32177. Hudson's addition to Palakka Heights, map book 1, pages 18 and 19, block 4, part of lot 4, official records book 482, page 1439, providing for severability and providing for effective date.
So moved.
It's a motion on the floor by Commissioner McCaskill. There's a second by Commissioner Boerma. We're now open the floor for public hearing. Is there anyone here for public hearing? The number is 386-329-0100, extension 0. You can use the YouTube chat or you can fill out a yellow speaker's card. Again, 386-329-0100, extension 0. Is there anything in the YouTube chat?
Not at this time, Mayor.
We'll now close public hearing. Is there any further discussion from the commission?
Question.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Salmon. Moving on to item number 12. It's an emergency item. I'll come right back to you. Item number 12 on the agenda, I'll entertain a motion at this time for the Burns Grant to hear it as an emergency item.
I'll make a motion that we accept this as an emergency item.
Second. Second, by good James.
It's a motion on the floor, second by Commissioner Jones. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up is for the Burns Grant, adopt resolution number 2021 R51, authorizing application execution of PPD application for the Bureau of Justice Assistance 2020 Edward Burns Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, JAG, Program County Solicitation, $20,018, no match required. Chief, you want to come forward at this time? Mr. Griffith as well. You want to anybody want to give the synopsis? Ms. Tucker or anyone? You want to give the synopsis of the grant?
Excuse me, Chief Shaw, your microphone's not on.
So he said that he said the Burns Grant was an annual grant, which we all were familiar with the grant. I just wanted to make sure that we had that on the record publicly. What's your deadline for applying?
I'm not sure overall the deadline. I know we had to have the award letter pushed in. May 13th is the deadline for us.
We're trying to get it in before the next meeting.
That's
so we
correct.
can make sure we establish everything. Any further questions of Chief as it relates to this grant?
And again, there's no matching funds, right? So
No match.
That's
It's
correct.
something we've approved the Burns Grant year after year.
Motion to approve.
There's a motion to approve by Commissioner Boer. Huh?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
second,
No, we didn't. That's new. That was accepted as an emergency item. Is there a second? Is that Commissioner McCaskill?
yes.
And the second by Commissioner McCaskill. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thanks, Chief. Mr. Griffith, we're back to you. Item number 9 on the agenda. Resolution number 2021 R49. We're looking at severability of the bids.
Yes, sir. I think I gave you some background on the previous agenda item. Ms. Tucker was nice enough to print off the front page of the ITB. We did confirm that the city reserved the right to enter into agreements with multiple respondents. I do want to point out, I just double checked the math on Brightview because it appeared that they had the lower annual cost on Oak Hill West Cemetery. They do not, based upon their per mow. So the low apparent bidder for Westview, Oak Hill, and East and West is Aaci Services, and the low apparent bidder on the Riverfront Park is Brightview Landscape Services.
Right, Brightview was lower at 19,000, right?
Correct. Yes, sir.
So they were roughly 10,000 lower than everybody else, looks like. close to it.
On that specific facility, yes.
Yeah. Or more than that on some people, the riverfront. Oh, weird. Those are the totals. What you see on that page is the total for all four categories together. But then once you go through, they've got a breakdown for each individual property. And when you look at Brightviews, the numbers just significantly lower, and they actually have pretty reputable clients with the references check out.
Okay, so it's significantly lower only as to the riverfront, Jonathan?
Just as riverfront, no, the other AACI still has the lower bids on the rest. And they're subject to a local preference.
Okay,
So
so,
on this page here, Jonathan,
yes,
is
sir.
this a total?
Yes,
for
that's the
bid?
total bid amount. You would need to look at their specific
So,
bid form attachment B. It's in your packet.
so when you look at these, you start to see breakdowns of each.
Right, I get that. So the total cost savings right here would be between the two would be about.
So when you, yeah, I had the same question. So his question was, when you look at the three properties, the total cost savings was $28,000.
With Brightview being the cheapest or the lowest bidder by $28,000 total.
Yeah, if you're just awarding all the properties to one contractor, I think what we're talking about here is splitting up the different locations.
Before splitting it up. So just quick follow-up. I thought it was said that AACI was the lowest bidder.
So to kind of back up a little bit, Commissioner, AACI is the lowest bidder if we are to only award the 3 cemeteries, not all 4 facilities. I just redid some math. I know I previously told you all, if you were going to award the cemeteries, you would have a total net cost savings to the city of $63,219. If you entertain the scenario of awarding the riverfront to Brightview and the other 3 facilities to AACI, which would be the lowest cost combination to the city, that would net $44,219 in savings to the general fund.
Yeah. The other thing is, if you look at the calculations for AACI at $28,000 for all 4 properties, it comes up to $112 instead of $140.
You are correct.
And so that's the difference. They're actually, AACI is actually $112.
But to your point earlier, the best scenario, and the city did reserve the right to award separate contracts, is to award, if you want to award all 4, the riverfront to Brightview and the cemeteries to AACI.
And Brightviews comes up to $111,990. They're like $10 apart in total. Any further discussion from the commission?
Question.
Motion yet? You have a question?
I'm sorry.
You got a question, Commissioner?
I'm sorry. I didn't realize y'all hadn't put in a motion. I'm very sorry.
No, we haven't put it in yet. We've just been discussing the totals and whether you could actually sever the bid to award separate properties to separate bidders.
I paid attention on that. I'm sorry, Mayor.
So,
For clarification, we all agree that the total on the AACI for all 4 would be 112,
112.
and the total for Brightview for all 4 is 112.1.
I got 111,990. Let me recalculate it. 111,990. But make sure. 111,990. That's what you got. Hold on.
Lauren, what you got? Let's refer this to Lauren.
It's 112.1.
Yeah.
It is accurate as he has it listed, 112.1.
So, but the 140 is inaccurate.
The 140 on AACI is inaccurate. The total of the 428 is 112.
112-1.
So are we just going all one contractor for all properties and not the split?
So the recommendation, what we got right now, just so that we're clear, and I apologize for creating confusion. The recommendation is to take the 3 properties excluding the riverfront.
Right.
That's what we have before us is the 3 properties excluding the riverfront, continuing to let staff mow the riverfront and award the bid to AACI for $84,000.
Okay.
That's the recommendation that staff has in place. Go ahead.
I would say I'd amend staff's recommendation if you wanted to award all 4. And I will note that I just did the calculation on the price per mow on Brightview Landscape Services. Their annual cost calculation is totally off. If you do it based upon the price per mow, they get a different annual cost for each facility, which is $118,000. With that said, if you want to award all 4, the total lowest cost scenario is awarding the 3 cemeteries to AACI and awarding the riverfront to Brightview Landscape Services. And staff had previously had a conversation with Brightview Landscape Services at honoring their $19,000 annual cost on the riverfront if they were only to be awarded the 1 facility.
And they were willing to accept?
Yes, sir.
And have the references checked out?
Haven't called to the references, sir.
What about for AACI?
They're a previous vendor. They've worked for us
They've worked
before.
with us before.
So, Jonathan, excuse me if I could, are you saying that the price per mow is accurate in terms of its calculation of an annual cost as to the riverfront part for Brightview?
That would be the number that we would rely on in the contract is the price per mow because we pay per mow.
Okay, but I'm asking you, is there a certain number of mows that are provided for in the contract?
40.
41 or 40?
I misspoke earlier. I double checked. It's 40,
Okay.
40,
So-
yeah.
So at $500 per mow for 40, that's 20 grand, is that right?
20,000.
So, but as I stated before, Mr. Holmes, they did previously agree to honor their $19,000 for the riverfront.
For 40 mows, which would bring their price per mow down.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
But the one combination just had a question. The one combination between when we're excluding the riverfront, which is at 19K, and that's for Brightview, and then AACI was gonna be at 84K, that come up to 103, right?
Yes, sir.
The combination. So that look like it's a better cost structure.
Frees up staff to work in other places too. So at this time, if there's no other questions or comments from the commission, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept AACI and Brightview to execute the contract, a dual contract to provide the services for more in the lawns in the said, as the contract is stated.
So let me just clarify. So your motion is that the 3 cemeteries be awarded to AACI and the riverfront be awarded to Brightview.
Correct.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? There's a second by Commissioner Jones. Is there any further discussion by the commission? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Mr. Holmes.
I'll be very brief, Mr. Mayor, just to give you a little bit of updates.
Glad to have your voice back.
Some probably aren't glad I got my voice back, but I am too, trust me. But I take my next shot next week, so it may go away again.
You were much nicer, quiet.
Probably. My dog said so too. Just brief update. We have hired and a candidate accepted the position of HR director. She'll start on May 3rd. It's Miss Virginia Jones. She is a local resident, currently working at the college. and her start date will be May 3. The process of hiring involved us receiving 40 applications, committee consisting of the city attorney and myself, city finance director, and I guess Mr. Griffith, reviewed and personally interviewed those that we sort of, I guess, selected from the initial 40. And ultimately, it boiled down to 2, and the other candidate withdrew prior to the final selection. So Ms. Jones will start May 3rd. Planning director, we received some applications, not many, quite frankly. Ultimately, we did not feel that any of those who applied were going to be a good fit for the city. We've gone back out. This time we've advertised in virtually every trade publication we could think of, in addition to Indeed, on LinkedIn, and various others. And we'll hopefully receive more applications for the planning director position. Meanwhile, Mr. Sammons is doing a very good job of trying to keep our head above water. We've approved a number of different development requests, and we just received a new PUD request or application yesterday for a fairly significant planned unit development, and we're trying to work those through. We had plans drafted for some, I guess you'd say, relatively minor upgrades to City Hall. It would be west of this room, but some additions for security and maybe to make the lobby a little bit more user-friendly and also a little bit more professional. We've got the plans drawn. We've actually solicited some bids, some initial inquiries to see if our cost is even in the ballpark. Once we figure out whether our cost is in the ballpark, we'll bring those plans to the commission and ask for your consideration of the plans. And then if we're in the ballpark on the bids, we'll go back out and select a bidder. If we're not in the ballpark on the bids, we may have to go back to the drawing board. I'll let code enforcement, let Mr. Cutright talk about our code enforcement hearing this month. And with that, I have nothing further.
Any questions for the commission? Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Ms. Shanks.
The original handout, I want to note, it did say as of December. That has been corrected. It's actually through March, and that is correct. Please note that if anything has been posted since then, that of course it does reflect the numbers. But there is no major changes. But as you can see, for the total countywide budget, we are pretty much on track. For general fund, can you scroll down just a little bit for me, Sunny? Did I say county? Oh, no, I'm so sorry. For city. I know, I'm sorry. The citywide budget, we are on track. So the revenues are higher than your expenditures. And as you can see, the general fund revenues, we are about 64% collected. Property taxes, they are still coming in, but typically we see a majority of them around that November to April timeframe. March timeframe. A lot of people like to take advantage of paying ahead to get that tax break. Thank you. You'll see expenditures aren't quite at 50%, although we are about 58% through the year. We're at 46% expenditure. So I definitely urge our departments to all be mindful of their spending. And then, yep. Perfect. I know we talked about airport already tonight, but as you can see, actually the airport fund is, you have less revenues than you have expenditures. I believe it's part in your capital expenses due to your grant cycle. You have to understand you've got the grant money coming in and there's a lapse. Utility fund,
same thing. It's a little bit down as far as your revenues. Expenses are a little up, but it should fluctuate and even itself out. Golf course is actually up in their revenues. And sanitation, your expenditures are up as well. TIF, we are 100% collected. As you know, by statute, the county has to pay us by January 1st. Otherwise, they incur fees. And Better Place. With the surtax, that does come in quarterly, so we are watching those deposits as they come through. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from the commission?
Well, I've got a comment. I do know, I mentioned a while back, but we can see if the city manager can, well, when we go back and we meet with the county to make sure that we have on our list to see if the city can obtain a bigger portion of the contributions that's given out. I think there's a total of, 13 or 18%. I'm not completely sure. But anyways, as they allocate those Better Place plans, funds, monies, that the city get a bigger portion, because I believe that we generate way more sales than anybody in the county. And I don't think that we're getting our share that we deserve.
So what I can do is I can actually reach out to the Department of Revenue and get more information on that for you.
Yes. Appreciate it.
Another note that I want to say, we are following the American Rescue Plan very carefully. As you know, they have up to 60 days to put out guidelines for spending. So at this time, we are waiting for those guidelines to come out.
What plan is that again?
The American Recovery Plan.
CARES Act.
Will we be distributing any of those funds? The city of Palakka?
To who?
At this time, we do not have any guidelines.
Distribute them to who?
This is,
eligible people.
this is different
We
than the
didn't get that.
CARES, Mayor. The CARES Act went to the county and then we submitted reimbursement request. This is coming directly to the
The
city of Palakka.
municipalities. Yeah, it's coming directly to municipalities.
Correct.
It's an
What-
extension of.
And how can we spend that money? What are the guidelines on how we spend that money?
We're
That's what you're
still
waiting on?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, all right, gotcha.
I know that, I believe Judd mentioned that tonight, about keeping the airport in mind when we go to spend. But at this time, we don't have any guidelines, so.
Everyone is mentioning being kept in mind. Trust me.
They'll continue to be.
No guidelines.
But that's been one of the pushes. Because when the CARES Act originally started, everything went to the county. We saw a lot of funds nationally get returned because there was no relationship with the cities to make sure that the disbursements reach the closest level to the people. So this is just another extension of CARES. It just gives municipalities the power to meet their own needs.
Absolutely.
So, any other questions? Thank you. Any other department heads with anything that they want to report at this time?
Yes, community affairs has something to say when I get a chance.
You're on the clock.
Okay. It's not gonna take long tonight, Mayor. I just want to let everybody know that the intent from Commissioner Bourne about letting the community know about their code violation cases, we should be able to go hot or go active probably mid-May. We had several Zoom meetings with our works, Miss Hayden Dyer, and we're working on trying to make the link on our city page friendly for the community to go on and see their cases. We have a few little glitches to work out depending on what we wanted to see, what we want them to see and what we wanted to say. But other than that, I think it's going to be a very successful tool once we get it up and running. I just want to let everybody know that is probably going to be put in place by mid-May. We had tentatively had June 1st as the start date, but it seemed to be working a little bit whole lot faster. and I think the process is going to be even smoother.
Thank you.
One
Any
more
other?
thing. One more thing. And for the recreation department, we're having a combine camp May the 22nd. We're sending out flyers to the commissioners and city manager. But I just want to put it out there so people start thinking about it. We will be on the radio, but it's a nice combine camp, and we got a couple of superstar NFL players coming in to do the camp.
I do have a question for you with regards to that. How are you getting that information disseminated to the schools?
What we're going to do is we're going to use social media. We're going to do flyers. We're going to be on the radio. We're going to put it in the newspaper, and we're going to try to send it to many coaches and athletic directors as possible. I actually been talking to a few of them, Coach Turner, Coach Red Allen, and a couple more. And Joy's been reaching out to Crescent City and a couple more schools to try to make sure we have all the athletic directors and coaches and Pop Warner coaches and everybody will be getting it in their hands.
Okay, what I'll do is I'll send you the contact information for the district level person that runs the Facebook group, as well as trying to get it out to the administrators to see if they can filter it down to their various staff on their campus. So I'll get that information to you so that we can kind of broaden the way that we get word out to the citizens as well as the students.
Okay. All right, Chris. Thank you.
Right, and I have one other thing to add to expand on what Commissioner Campbell was saying, but I do know the school board have recently appointed Miss Ashley McCool as the community liaison, so I think that she would be a good point of contact as well. So you can use her, and she's filling that capacity now.
Will do.
Mr. Cutright, do you want to briefly talk about the code enforcement hearing that was held this week?
Well, yeah, we had 6 cases that came up on the code enforcement hearing this past Tuesday. All of them came in our favor. We won all of them. We have some judgments out there that has 30 days to come into compliance. We're the Texaco building on Creole Street was one. We had a couple more. I'm not going to call all addresses out, but I think it's going pretty well. We're in the process of trying to find classes for David Green to get face trained, and we are building this team. It's taking its time, but I think with David Green and Miss Erin Hughes' help, I think we're coming a long way.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Jones.
Just one question. Mr. Cutright, if it's all possible, could we get like a synopsis or a summary of those every now and then?
Yes, I can definitely do that. I can actually send you the synopsis and summaries probably that Friday prior to the hearing, so you'll get a chance to see what we're going to talk about on that Tuesday. Would that work?
Just the cases and the conclusions that you drawn or the magistrate.
Let's do it after the hearing so they have a
After the
result.
hearing, after
Can
the
you
hearing.
send them a copy of the minutes once they're
We got-
drafted, so they'll
I
have
get
that?
I get it to you, Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, sir.
Probably easier to give you the minutes, so it won't be redundant. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Thank you, Mr. Cutright. Get off before you get any additional questions. Anyone else with questions?
Mayor, if I may, I just want to congratulate Mr. Holmes and Ms. Thomas as they come up on celebrating their 1-year anniversary as interim city manager and interim city attorney.
Hey,
We greatly appreciate their leadership from staff. And I also want to wish a happy birthday to Miss Lauren Shank on May 9th.
So that means we need to celebrate you too, because you came with Attorney Holmes.
Right, absolutely. So,
I came in June 1.
well, we just.
The time is now 8:30.
First of all, he was late to the meeting.
Are there any other, seeing no further comments from staff, it's 7:30 in Alabama. Commissioner Campbell.
I have none. I just want to bring the attention to some of the board
Have
vacancies.
none, but you just want to bring it.
I'm talking about personal comments, but I do want to bring light to a few vacancies that we have with a few of our boards. We have Putnam County Library Board, we have the Historic Preservation Board, Planning Board, as well as Zoning Board of Appeals. If you may be interested as a citizen, please contact City Hall for additional information.
No, any other comments that are no comments? Commissioner Jones, Commissioner Jones.
I have done, sir.
You sure? Commissioner Borum.
I just want to commend staff, our city attorney and city manager for their 1 year, coming up on their 1 year anniversary. Other than that, don't have no other comments.
Hey, 1 year, but yeah, you got a meeting coming up.
Me?
Yeah, you got a meeting. You want to announce your meeting?
The one tomorrow,
City Hall.
29th.
Town Hall.
Yes, I do have a community meeting scheduled for April 29th. It'll be here at the City Hall. Just inviting, moving around the city for the most part, but inviting the Central Business District and the North Historic District, who's going to be the first round, and we'll just continue to move around, just trying to get community feedback and dialogue with the community. What's going well, what's not going well, how can we do better? And appreciate all the support I get from the commission. Thanks.
Commissioner McCaskill.
No, sir, I want to make sure you have all the time you need for your comments.
I'm quiet today. I'm gonna be quick. Is just one quick announcement, something to keep our heads looking for. Pastor Mulberry, we know we brought Pastor Mulberry in as chaplain for the city. He's actually working on a faith-based initiative to bring forward to the commission, as well as create additional partnerships with the faith-based community. Outside of that, we're moving forward in the city. There's not much for us to talk about right now. Typically, I'd be saying it's festival time, but we're just excited that the city of Palakka continues to move forward. 1 year at city manager is a major accomplishment. So we're just excited about moving forward, looking at opportunities to start to work closely with other governmental agencies. So I'm excited about what's coming forward in the next months. With that, we're adjourned if there's nothing further.